shoulder flexion. Now we switch to the goniometer. And then I want you to face towards the board, please. Okay, so goniometer. So now the axis of rotation for shoulder flexion is going to be through the greater tubercle, right? The neutral position is with the person's arm to her side. So I make sure she's at 0, right? So I don't have to push like this because I need the goniometer away from her arm, right? So that's the neutral position. Both arms pointing down towards the floor, right? Then, yeah, they're perpendicular to the floor. So then I'm gonna ask her, I want you to take your arm and I want you to put your thumb up and all the way back. Okay, so now, when she does that, her arm, her greater tubercle actually changes. So now watch. Put down your arm. Okay, I'm gonna put my finger on her greater tubercle. Now I want you to do the same thing with your arm. Lift it straight up. You see how my finger rotates? Now it's back here.
Can you do it one more time, please?
Yep, down.
Okay.
So I'm here. Now go ahead up. You see how my finger rotates? So, of course, we can't put the goniometer back here. We're going to put it on the side. But it was here. We have to make sure that we shift the goniometer back.
What do you mean?
To be in line with the to be in line with the greater tubercle. So it moves, right? So then I come up as far back as you can go. You're gonna line the stable arm up with the trunk. Right, the movable arm is going to be lined up with the middle of the humerus. There, okay, good. And so she has 158 degrees.
We're looking at the right numbers?
And no, the black numbers. The normal range is 180.
She had what?
158. 158.
That's 180.
Yeah. You what? It is 180.
No, I said what's 180? If she was
all the way back here.
She
See, now I can move my elbow and it makes it look like my arm goes back further. I can bend my back, but you know, to make it look like it, but you actually have to be up, and you see how much further my hand has to go back to get there? See, now she's probably a little bit further. So I need to line it up with her spine. Line it up with, make sure it's over the greater tubercle.
No, good.
Make sure I'm at the middle of her humerus. Now that's much closer. That's 170. So she had 0 to 170.
Ooh.
She just had one.
Okay, so that's flexion. Extension is the same way for neutral. Arm to the side. Axis through the greater tubercle of the humerus. This is going to be lined up perpendicular to the floor and lined up with the humerus. Okay. Now, for extension, there's not, since we only have 60 degrees of extension, the greater tubercle is not going to shift. So, really. So now I'm going to ask her to bring her hand behind her like this as far as she can go, without compensating, right? Without leaning forward or anything. Okay. So now, greater tubercle, put your arm behind you. There. And then the stable arm is going to be lined up with her trunk here, greater tubercle, and then the movable arm is going to be lined up with the middle of her humerus.
What are you doing?
What happened?
Who? Me?
No, Tabitha. Take on my hand.
What?
Movable arm is going to be lined up with the middle of the humerus. So she actually has 0 to 65 degrees of extension, normal 0 to 60.
Wow.
Okay? So, okay, so that's shoulder flexion and extension. Then we have AB and adduction. So abduction, so now I need you to face the wall, please. Again, so again, the axis of rotation is through the head of the humerus, right there, right? And then the stationary and movable arms are going to be lined up with the trunk, like that.
So, perpendicular to the trunk?
parallel to
Parallel.
the trunk, right? So, if a person is obese, as long as their arm can go to their side, then we consider it a 0 because they can't get any closer, right? So, so if they're obese, even if they're out here, this is considered 0 if this is as far in as they can go to their sides, right? Does that make sense? Okay. So, she's at 0. So now I'm going to ask her, now this is important, I'm going to ask you to take your arm and bring it up, and with your thumb back, up over your head like this. Okay.
Oh, I did it wrong.
That's fine, with your thumb back. Yep, good job. Okay, so then the axis of rotation is going to be through the head of the humerus again. The stationary arm is going to be lined up with the trunk. And the movable arm is going to be lined up with the middle of her humerus. I'm going to make sure that this is lined up with the trunk. This is lined up with her thing here, there. Okay, good. Okay, and so yeah, she's right at 180. Bam.
Bam, bam.
0 to 180. Now, adduction is the same, but the only difference is she starts in this position, right? So she starts in that position, and so she's starting at 180. The stationary arm is lined up with her trunk. The movable arm is lined up with the middle of her humerus here. And then I just ask her to bring your arm down to your side. Okay? And then I just make sure that's 0. Now, like I said, if it's a person that's obese, as long as their arm is to their side, then it's 0. Okay?
So then if they don't go all the way to 180, you do like 158 to 0 or whatever.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. That is correct.
What now?
She's saying if in a deduction, if they start out like here, and if this is like 145, then her range for a deduction is going to be 145 to 0, right?
You have to use that number because they can't get to.
Because the normal range of motion for a deduction is 180 to 0. Okay?
Okay, so a deduction is 180 to 0.
That's
A
normal.
deduction is 0 to 180.
Correct.
So
Okay.
a deduction is flipped. So 180 to 0.
Okay, so then the next one is external rotation. And I'm going to actually...
80 is 180.
have you sit right there, please. Okay, so for external and internal rotation, the starting position is going to be with her elbow, her arm abducted to 90 degrees and her elbow flexed to 90 degrees, like
Arm and elbow 90 degrees.
So the axis of rotation for this one is going to be through the olecranon process, right? The stationary arm is going to be perpendicular to the floor. The movable arm is going to be lined up with her elbow, and we should be, sorry,
So I wasn't quite at 90, so would you like fix that?
not quite at 90, yeah. You would just make sure, if you can fix it,
Right.
yeah, you'd make sure it's level.
So it is down the ulna.
Or the middle of the forearm, right? So then external rotation, so now I'm reading the red numbers, right? I'm reading red 0. So now I'm gonna ask her to now take your hand and bring it up like this. Okay, so the olecranon process, my stable arm is gonna be perpendicular to the floor. My movable arm now is gonna go in line with her, in the middle of her forearm or her ulna. And then you can see that she over-rotated some, so she has more than 90 degrees. And in fact, she has almost 109.
So
She's at 0 to 109 degrees of external rotation. So, Okay, but she only needs 90 to be normal, so she did go more than what she needed to.
Extra normal.
That makes you extra special.
Oh.
You're extra special. You can tell your husband that today.
Oh, I tell him everything.
You know.
Oh, okay, good. As long as he knows. Okay, so now for internal rotation, she's gonna begin in the same position, right? So elbow arm abducted to 90, elbow flexed at 90 degrees. My axis is through my olecranon process. My stationary arm is going to be perpendicular to the floor. My movable arm is going to be parallel with her ulna or middle of her forearm. Okay? So she's at 90. So now I ask her to take her hand and rotate it down. Now that's about 90 degrees. So she has a lot of... So I'm going to still put my axis of rotation here through the olecranon process. She's really pushing it. And then the stationary arm is going to be perpendicular to the floor still, and now I'm going to line this up with her ulna or the middle of her forearm, and so you're good. So she actually went to 80 degrees. Where are we at? Yes. So she went, she's at like 0 to 83 degrees of internal rotation, and normal is 0 to 70.
So
Okay.
bring hand, forearm down beside you, position, move arm to the forearm.
That sounded right.
Perpendicular.
Now, there's a lot of there's a couple different ways to measure horizontal AB and adduction. Most books will tell you to measure horizontal abduction and adduction. This is the starting position. And so what happens is, for horizontal abduction, she would come back behind her like she's trying to hit her kid in the back seat, right? Go ahead, bring your arm.
Oh, my arm can go real far then.
No, so right there, yep. So right there. So it usually will measure the range of motion from here to here. But this usually is not a functional position unless you're trying to reach something in your back seat, right? We usually don't use this motion for a lot besides getting your kids or getting something from the back
I
seat.
do that a lot.
So we start our neutral position here.
Oh, so I don't need to start that way.
No.
Well, dang, I started right.
So now the axis of rotation is going to be through the head of her humerus. Both the stationary and movable arms are going to be lined up with the middle of her humerus here. Okay. And then for abduction, I'm going to ask her to bring your arm, and I want you to bring it out to the side, please. Yep, as far as you can. Good. Without compensating, right there. So now, my axis of rotation is still going to be over the head of the humerus. My stationary arm is going to be lined up in front of her body, perpendicular to the wall in front. And then my movable arm is going to be lined up with the middle of her humerus. Okay, go ahead, relax. And so she is at she's at 115.
Okay, so movable arm goes where?
Yeah, 0 to 115. What, when she's after the machine?
After you tell her to bring up, we're here, we'll bring back. Where does the movable arm go? Where does
It's
it
lined up with the middle of her humerus. Like that.
lined up?
Okay. So she has 0 to 115. Normal is 0 to 90 because this is usually all the range we need is 90 degrees to be functional, but we do go a little bit further than that. Okay, so then horizontal adduction starts with her in the same position. My axis of rotation is still going to be over the head of her humerus. Both my stationary and movable arms are going to be lined up with her humerus. And then I'm going to ask her to take her arm, and I want you to cross it across your body. Okay, good. So then, now, my axis of rotation is still going to be over the head of her humerus. My stationary and movable arms are still going to be perpendicular to the wall, but then I'm going to move my movable arm to be lined up you see how my stationary arm moved? I need to make sure that that stays perpendicular. And then my movable arm is lined up with the middle of her humerus, like that. So she has 0 to 45, which is normal. 0 to 45 degrees. That's how you do range of motion of the scapula and the shoulder. Bam.
I don't know about snap of a finger.
Oh.